see the new kitchen that we have put together and got it up and running finally and approved for all of the uses that we have here at the church. And so we're going to get a tour of the kitchen and a tour of the different appliances here, so that if you are going to be fortunate enough to help cook in any kind of meal, you're going to know what to do. And so we're going to be met here by Bob Burnham.
Hey guys, hi Steve.
Hi Bob, Chief Cook, Chief Bottle Washer, key man here that's going to show us how to operate everything. So let's go into the
Come on in, Steve. Okay, first of all, this is where we keep the hats to protect hair from falling in people's soups and sandwiches. And a good supply of gloves for handling food if you're serving or preparing food to be eaten, such as salads and things of that nature. Any food that's not going to be cooked before it's served, you need to be wearing gloves. So over here, we have the refrigerator and freezer, or as I like to call them, Jacob and Esau. They're twins at birth, but they live very different lives. The refrigerator keeps things cold, multiple shelves. When you use it, you want to try and keep the food groups of the same nature on their own shelves. You don't want to mix meats and fruits and veggies on the same shelf. So typically we try and store meats in a tray on the bottom section of the refrigerator. The freezer keeps things frozen, and there's not much to it. Just try and keep the same rule of thumb where you keep food groups separate from each other. Okay, now next we have the hand washing station, or as I call it, Jacob's Well. It's one of the first things you do when you come into the kitchen. If you're going to be serving food, preparing food, or assisting one of the cooks in any way, the first thing you need to do is wash your hands in the hand wash sink. It's also used during an event if you're preparing meats to be cooked, and then your next job might be preparing a salad. Then you need to come over here and wash your hands because you're changing a particular job type. So keep that in mind. Whenever in doubt, wash your hands. Next, we have the 3-bay pot and pan sink. Wash, rinse, and sanitize, or as I like to think of it as confess, repent, purified. The wash sink is for soapy water. The rinse sink we typically leave empty because we utilize the sprayer so that we're rinsing soapy pots and pans with clean water rather than dipping pans in still water filled in the sink. The operation is quite simple. There's a diverter here that diverts the water from the faucet to the hose sprayer. One thing to keep in mind, at the end of the day, you need to reconnect the hose sprayer to the hook and turn the diverter off onto the faucet. What we don't want to happen is for this to be hanging out here and the plumbing to fail and the floor would get flooded. The sanitization sink, we use 3/4 of a cup of bleach with 10 gallons of water, and there's a etched water line mark in the sink that marks off the 10-gallon level. One thing to keep in mind, Clean and sanitize are two different things. Clean just means that something is free of dirt and grime and oil and grease, but it doesn't mean it's free from germs and bacteria. So clean and sanitize, they're two different things. Try and keep that in mind. Okay, next up is the vegetable/food prep sink. And this is the holy ground of the kitchen. And the reason I call it the holy ground of the kitchen is because this sink can be used for nothing else. It can't be used for hand washing. It can't be used for rinsing dishes. It can only be used for prepping food and nothing else. Typical use is with a strainer and a large bowl. You fill the bowl with water. You put your fruits or veggies in the strainer and swish and clean and rinse under the running water of the sink. But it can't be stressed enough that nothing else can go into this sink. Okay, so next up is the dishwasher, or as I call it, Noah's Ark. Now, a great thing about this dishwasher is its cycle time is about 3.5 minutes. And it doesn't sanitize with chemicals, it sanitizes with hot water. And a couple other things to remember with the dishwasher is it's not a good degreaser and it's not a garbage disposal. So you really need to pay attention to rinsing off dishes and anything that's greasy you want to take care of over at the 3-bay pot and pan sink before you utilize the dishwasher. Anything in the kitchen is safe to run through the dishwasher. The large pots can even be run through the dishwasher. Once again, as long as you take the time to do a proper wash and rinse at the 3-bay sink, then you can use the dishwasher to sanitize the pot. Another thing to keep in mind is any items that are light will fly around within the dishwasher because of the high pressure water spray. So anytime you use the dishwasher for light items, you want to cover it with another rack. Another thing to keep in mind is knives should not be run through the dishwasher because the high pressure water will eventually dull all the knives. So all the knives are taken care of at the 3-bay pots and pans sink. Now, like I mentioned earlier, the dishwasher sanitizes using hot water. So it needs to be run a minimum of 3 times before the water gets up to temperature where it will properly sanitize items run through it. So there's a power switch down at the bottom, clearly marked on and off. Once you load the dishwasher, the start button is right here up in the corner. And it's an automatic cycle. The green LED back down here will be lit until the cycle is over. Another thing to keep in mind is since it does sanitize anything that's run through there with hot water, if you are here with a child, you do want to keep them away from the dishwasher when it's being unloaded or loaded due to the hot water. Any questions, Steve?
No, it sounds pretty good. You can put in basically anything in the kitchen you can put in there, right?
Anything that'll fit as long as it doesn't interfere with the top water jet wand. As long as it doesn't interfere with that, you can put anything in here as long as you're utilizing the racks. And while we have it open, Steve, after each event, please take the time to remove the food catcher. This is the food catcher, and empty it out into the trash can. And also, when you're done with the event, turn it off and it will automatically drain any water remaining in the dishwasher. Okay, so next we have the oven, the stove, and the griddle, or as I like to call them, Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego. Before any one of these units can be used for cooking, the first thing you need to do is turn on the exhaust fan, which we're going to leave off for demonstration purposes so you can hear me. These ovens are convection ovens, and all that means is there's a fan in the back that blows hot air throughout the oven so that foods that are cooked in the oven cook evenly and more quickly. So when you're preparing a dish, you need to decide whether you want to cook at the same temperature for less time or at a lower temperature for longer time, as if you were using a conventional oven. Now these are heavy-duty doors, and they don't close with just a nudge. Don't be afraid, they're not going to break. You want a nice tight seal for it to operate properly. Now, to get it up and running, there's really just 3 steps. The manual auto switch is set to auto. The fan speed can be set for either low or high. I always default to low. Set your temperature to the desired setting, and then turn the gas on here with this small on-off switch. This red light will come on, indicating that the oven has begun its preheat. When the red light goes off, it indicates that the oven has finished its preheating cycle. At the end of an event or cooking cycle, the 3 things you need to do is put the red switch back to manual, you want the fan switch back to off, and of course, you want to turn the gas switch off. Both ovens are identical. Now the stove. There's not much to explain here, except it's not like your stove at home. Its flames has a lot more BTUs than your gas stove at home. If something at home takes 20 minutes to boil, it'll boil in less than half the time here. If you're doing a small event where you're allowed to bring in food prepared at home, and you bring in a pot or a pan and you use it on this stove, you have to be very careful not to use the stove on its highest setting, because it will destroy your pots or pans, making for a not happy day. Another thing to mention about the stove is the pilots for each burner are always on, and just like a candle at home, it is hot. So once again, if you're in here with a child and you're simply having them help you with some food serving or whatnot, you have to be aware that this area over here is hot at all times. The griddle. The griddle has these covers on it so that dust and bugs won't get trapped on the cooking surface. Once again, there's not much to explain on how to use it, except you want to give it ample time to warm up to the desired temperature setting, especially if you're doing something like pancakes, because if you try and cook pancakes before the griddle is up to temperature, it'll just make a muddy mess. It's a 3-burner griddle, and it also has pilots that are lit all the time near the burners under the griddle, so there's no need to light the griddle each time you use it. Now, the easiest way to keep it as a non-stick surface is when you're finished cooking, is to use the scraper to clean the surface as soon as you can. It's used very simply. You use the black scraper and pull straight back. Or if you have very sticky food on there, you can push straight forward and then pull straight back. And this aluminum scraper can get back into the corners to scrape debris back to the debris tray. What you don't want to do is go crazy with the scraper in all different directions, because it will dig into the griddle surface, create scratches, and eventually, damage it permanently. So straight forward with pressure on the knob, or straight back. And before you walk away from it, when you're done with an event, you want to use a moderate amount of oil and spread it on the surface, and then cover it with the pans. So when you're done cleaning the griddle and leaving it ready for the next person to use, the last thing you need to do is clean out the grease collection tray. Utilize the trash can, then the 3-bay sink, and then just replace it. But it's really important to clean this out after each use. You don't want grease to build up, because if it builds up and someone's using the griddle, there is a remote chance that the grease could catch on fire. And last but not least, there's a control box up in this corner. Okay, if that red light is not lit, that can mean several things. The most common thing that it means is that the kitchen experienced a power outage. If there's a power outage, there's electrical controls that stop the gas from entering the appliances. And if that's ever the case when you come in to use the kitchen for an event, you need to call the emergency contact person, which is and their phone number is located in this drawer over here, in this binder. There's a telephone number for several emergency contact people in case the pilots need to be relit on the appliances for your event. What do you think of the new kitchen, Steve?
I'm ready to have dinner.
Dinner? Breakfast is my favorite. Let's start with breakfast.
Okay.